Well, thanks everyone for coming. It's so nice to see everybody again. And I would like to introduce Veronica Funk. She's a friend and mentor that I met through masteries.com, which is the online mentoring program for artists. And I liked her so much, I worked with her twice. I always say that Veronica is a calm, what's the word? Sensible, sane voice in developing your art career in a way without FOMO. She just somehow makes it all, oh, okay, I can do that. And it makes you feel like you're doing the right thing. She has been an artist for 25 or 30 years, depending on which day you ask, I think. She wasn't sure. She grew up in northern Manitoba. As you can see the influence in the canoe painting behind her. And she is known for her series. Some people call her the queen of series. She's done a number of series on women. She does a lot of portraits, and some of her series are called Heroes, Nasty Women, Grandmothers, Extraordinary Women, and another series on women's work. And I will let her tell you all about it. Veronica's from Alberta. She's a member of the Alberta Society of Artists, and perhaps other things that I'm not aware of yet.
Not
but
right now.
Okay, so I will hand it over to Veronica now, and we will take questions during. Lisa will monitor the questions, and if there's a pertinent one that would fit well into the conversation, she will interrupt Veronica and ask it. Otherwise, we'll go over the questions at the end.
Obviously, this is all about promoting your work, and it's really interesting. But before I even start here, I'm going to go kind of from the beginning to the end, like from creating a body of work all the way to the end. I'll kind of go a little faster through the beginning parts, but I think setting everything up in the beginning is what's really important for promoting yourself and sharing your work. And I don't even like the word promoting. I think it's more about sharing and relationship building. I think that's where you get the most support. So why is this important? So when I started out on this creative journey, it was difficult to find information. So that was pre-digital era, pre-computers. So, and there weren't all these, people wanting to offer classes or anything. I went to Red Deer College to art school. I studied art and design. They didn't tell you how to write a statement, how to write a CV, none of that. They just kind of gave you a bunch of materials and let you run with it. So it was really hard for me. So what I started doing was going to galleries, meeting with directors, and you had to book an appointment. Well, an artist whose work I admired. But the thing is, oh, can you hear me still? My internet says it's unstable. Am I visible? Okay, good. The thing is that I learned through all these years, everybody has a different path to creating their work and to getting their work out there. So there's not one way fits everyone, which actually was a huge relief to me once I realized that, because I tried a few things. Oh, I failed miserably, spent money that I shouldn't have, that I wish I wouldn't have, and everything. But the thing is that for me, it's really important to share my experience with others, because it's something I wish others would have shared with me more in the beginning too. So, so I was just going to show you on that slide, that's my current exhibit. So they didn't have a lot of hanging wires. So that's really interesting. I used to get so anxious. Well, I am an anxious person by nature, but when, okay, we don't have 52 sets of hanging wires for you. So then, but now I look at it as an interesting challenge. So I ended up going to the hardware store and buying, hardware, and screwed 4 of the paintings together. So I had them in groups of 4. And I think the show looks really fantastic. So it's funny how, a challenge can become a really interesting creative problem to solve. So the first thing that I have found, finding your voice as an artist, that is the tough thing. What do I want to paint? How do I want to paint it? What materials do I want to use? But it is like your handwriting or your fingerprint. The way you draw it or paint or whatever, however you create, is going to be intrinsic to you as a person. And that's a really good thing. Like when Barb was mentioning my bodies of work. So I got into art school by drawing highly realistic portraits. And I hated every minute of doing that work. 30 days, every day of drawing. I couldn't stand it. And then when I was in college, I was introduced to, Georgia O'Keeffe and the group of seven. It's like, oh my gosh, there's so many different ways you can do it. You don't have, so I'm a huge fan of Georgia O'Keeffe and Emily Carr and Lauren Harris. They're simple, they're bold, they're very colorful, and I got lots of advice, tone it down, don't do all hard lines. I love hard edges, love them. So, it's funny, you do it, you'll find your audience. I always keep a small Moleskine sketchbook with me. I jot down ideas, like when we're traveling, I'll do little sketches. And just remember, like, my work has changed. I did these large interiors when I started exhibiting work, but that was after years of creating other work until I figured out what medium I liked, what substrate I liked, and everything, and the subject matter that kept drawing me back. And so I switched from those interiors to my canoes because I missed my childhood growing up north. We moved when I was in grade 11 to Alberta, which was really, really tough time to move. But as soon as I started painting my canoes, I just felt more settled here. And I started recognizing, wow, there's canoes in the mountains everywhere. Like there's nature everywhere. There are similarities in, across the country, especially because I grew up in the boreal forest. But there's a lot of practice. You need a lot of patience, and especially switching. And then I started doing my portraits because it was my daughter who said, you should do portraits again, Mom. You haven't done them since college. But then when I finally started doing them in a way that was a little more illustrative, very colorful, a lot of pattern, finally, I enjoyed doing portraits, for the first time since, 1986 or whenever I went to school. So once you figure out what you want to create, then you got to figure out how you want to create it. And, some of the things from both my high school and my college teachers that was so good is talking about doing things in series, because you get better at it. You become more proficient in the use of your tools and materials and everything. And years ago, an artist, Margaret Vanderhaeg, she's in Regina. Her husband, Guy Vanderhaeg, Barb, I know you've heard this story. He won a Governor General's award for his book, The Englishman's Boy, I think it's called. But anyway, and she gave me the best advice when I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. She said, pay attention to what draws your attention and focus on that. So a series doesn't need to be one subject matter. It can be same subject matter and medium. I tend to I've done series where many different sizes, from 5 or 6 feet down to, I think 20 by 20 was the smallest in a couple of series. But I've also done these series now with the portraits all exactly the same size, either 8 by 10 or 7 by 14. You can have the same subject matter, but a different medium. A friend of mine is a sculptor, but he also draws. So he'll draw on like Yupo paper, and he uses, he has a farm out by Red Deer, and he'll use found objects like an old bedstand he's found in an outbuilding or whatever, old farm implements and that. So he had a whole show of his sketches of what he was envisioning for his sculptures, plus the sculptures in the center of the space. Oh my gosh, it was so beautiful, and candles lit everywhere. And, old timey farm style gospel music. It was like walking into some kind of church. It was just beautiful. So he used a couple of different medium, including, using the music and the candles. That was all part of his, and he used like, the lanterns, like the old lanterns that were lit. It was just stunning. You can do the same media, but different subject matter. You can do the same shape, and a variety of different media. Like anything is a body of work as long as you have 20 to 25 larger pieces or 50 to 75 smaller pieces or more. Because my Nasty Women project was, I started it, it was the political situation in the States, pre-Biden. And I put out a call and got 100 women respond saying, oh, I'd love you to paint me. I just wanted 100 women from all walks of life. So it was our mayor and, different teachers and homemakers and university students. And I just wanted to show these are nasty. If these are nasty women, I feel very lucky, to be in this world with them. So I just wanted to put a positive spin on a negative situation at that time. But so that one was 100 portraits in 100 days. And that was to challenge myself. And I had seen this thing on social media, on Instagram, do the 100-day project, which I just redid, but I did 100 little, like that fit in a mint tin, portraits of female artists, because I've been seeing all these female artists that I even took art courses last year at ACAD, or Alberta University of the Arts, art history classes. They didn't talk about, you barely talked about women. They were still talking about men. And I have since learned, as I'm researching more, so many of these women were even more successful than the group of 7 at their time. But the group of 7 were a wealthy, privileged group of white men, and they got all the attention, unfortunately. And things haven't changed a lot, which is what brought me to women's work, it's slowly changing. But I thought at this time it would be totally changed. I'm not anti-man. I have a wonderful husband, just to clarify. But building a series, you want to consider what you want to create, how you want to create it, when you want to create it, because even the time of day is going to change. Like if you're feeling energized and excited to do this work, and where you want to create it. Because I've had studios, like our first apartment was, I just taped plastic garbage bags to our, dining area. It was just a 1-bedroom apartment wall, and I had a rolly cart with my supplies. But for me, I know I need my studio space accessible. So I do have a space now. Right now, I'm in one of the smaller rooms in my house because my daughter is home until she leaves for England in fall. But I have a nice space. It's always ready. I walk in, I can work there. But I do know for myself, I have OCD, so I need a clean environment. If it's a mess, I will not go in. So it's all those things. Pay attention to how you feel about the space that you're working in and everything around it, because then it's a lot easier to create a body of work when you have everything in order. And I have had, studios in a closet, but I have everything ready to go so I can open the closet doors and start painting. And then for me, for focus, I like to start with a working title. I've sat on a number of arts boards and everything. And even anytime we start a project, the city hates it because I go, oh, we should call it this. And they're like, no, that comes down the line once we've got this, all the ducks in a row. It's like, if I don't have a title to focus on, because it can change, but I need something to focus on, because then that can keep, well, maybe part of that. I'm also ADHD, so I just need that focus to work towards. But the title helps me write my artist statement. And my artist statement, again, with my little notebook, I'll start jotting down words or phrases or ideas when I'm working or when I'm walking, or even, if my husband's driving us somewhere. I really pay attention to words and that matter to me. And when you write a statement, everything should matter to you. Don't look at other statements unless you're looking for, just a layout kind of idea. But there's not one way to write a statement. And that was one thing when I started exhibiting my work, again, pre-internet era, that galleries used to look for one specific style of writing, and it was very academic. I don't like writing like that. So I have always made my statements about why this work is important to me. And it can be even that, it adds joy in your world or the world of people around it. It doesn't have to be like me at like women's work. It started this one that's currently up, my most recent series. It started because I lost all my well, an exhibit opened the day the government of Alberta shut down galleries. So for 2 months, I had an exhibit up and that I had worked on for 2 years, and nobody got to see it in person. I lost all my residencies. I lost my teaching, workshops, and I do residencies in schools, lost all of that. And then I was feeling kind of, like we all felt kind of very vulnerable, right, during that time. But one day on CBC radio, I heard Judy Aldous talking about this she session and how job loss was predominantly affecting women during COVID. So I put out a call asking if anybody would be interested in sharing their story. But I realized very quickly, people contacted me personally. They didn't want to share about job loss because they felt ashamed, right? That even though they weren't the last one hired, they were the first one laid off at their jobs, and that, whether they were in engineering or whatever it was. And I had a lot of doctors and nurses get in touch, and artists and gig workers, musicians and writers and everything. So I changed it to sharing whatever story, because I started realizing women's work is so valuable. It doesn't matter what you do, the contribution of women is important. And, so even just making that little shift at the beginning, then I got 52 women to step up and share their stories, which has been fantastic. And so that title, I knew it was going to be women's work, but I didn't know that it was going to be about just whatever that women do, whether, again, they were homemakers or whatever. But what was important to me is the story they shared with me. And so you need your title, you need your statement, and you need this body of work to market it, whether you want it in galleries or whatever you do with it. That's really important. But the number one thing is create and share your work. So this is a picture from the Leighton Center in February. I finally got to show my grandmothers, which I had put out a call for October pre-COVID, started in January, and then COVID hit worldwide by March, right? So then it was just almost serendipitous. I didn't know this was going to happen. And the reason I started this body of work is after my dad passed away, we had to drive to Manitoba, because my mom is not a sensitive person like her daughter. She was going to throw all the family photos in the garbage. So we went to save them. And I found out that my great grandmother had been a midwife in South America. She got herself a medical textbook from Canada, taught herself to read, learned about sterilization, and she never lost any babies or mothers. And I thought, wow, that's my great grandmother in a third world country. Well, her photo is in the capital city of Asuncion in the hospital, because she's very highly regarded there, because she was one of the first to bring sterilization to the country, So it's like, that's when I started thinking on our 17-hour drive back, like, if my great grandmother from a third world country, uneducated, did this, I'm really curious what other people's grandmothers have done. And then when the pandemic hit, we lost some of these grandmothers. So it was even more important. And this was a tough project because a lot of people had to do, contact family members that they hadn't been in communication with for years and get stories and photos. And so it was just an amazing project. So there's a little bit of it left, like 20 pieces, and it's up at a seniors home in Calgary right now, which they were going to have it for a month, and now it's been there for several months because the seniors keep coming and reading the stories and seeing the photos and learning about these women. So that's pretty amazing to me. So you never know what you do. If something really touches you, it is going to touch somebody else too. And you never know how or where or what's going to happen. So the next thing, you always have to have your bio. I don't know if you all have one. If you don't, you have to, even if you think there's nothing on it. Sorry, I have an eye infection. But you have to write your bio in third person, because only you know what brought you to creating. I've met so many artists that were in other fields, engineering, medical field, whatever, and they became artists, but it was something that was always in them. So when you're writing your biography, you always start with your full name. It's like writing a newspaper article almost. So like, look at newspaper articles. So Veronica Funk was born in the mid 1960s in Canada and raised in northern Manitoba, because that's a really important part of my life. Because I was taught by Cree grandmothers to do all sorts of things, weaving and beading, but that's where my love of art started. I studied art and design. So I kind of talk about my education. You don't necessarily have to. I also got to mentor with artists through the Winnipeg Art Gallery. I lived out there for a number of years. And I'm studying English right now. I'm on my last year of my Bachelor of Arts in Literature, which is really exciting for me. I've tried mixed media, altered books. I still do altered books. Pottery, I've done sculpting, I've done a lot of different things, and I think that's not uncommon in the arts. And then talk a bit about where my work has been exhibited, the awards I've received. And then at the end, I've put, like, you can find this all on my website too. But at the end, I've placed the aim of her work is to support women and highlight gender inequality by combining symbols, imagery, and vibrant color using opaque and transparent acrylic glazes. So that's changing because my husband's developed an allergy to acrylic, so I'm switching to watercolors over the last year. It's been slow, but I still use brayer and brushes and different layers.
Veronica,
and the other thing,
a quick question is, what is the difference between a bio and a statement? I find this confusing.
Statements in first person, bios in third person. And statement will more focus on your work, whereas your bio tells you more about you and how you became an artist. So I'm going to go quickly over a statement as well today too. But bio, third person, kind of about you as a person and what brought you to what you do and why you love being an artist. So, and often your bio is shared by galleries. So sometimes they'll share a bio, sometimes they'll share the statement, and on occasion they share your CV. But the thing I was going to say, add a photograph of you. People want to see you as a human being, especially with all this garbage on the internet and fake, sites and everything. People want to see you either at work, with your supplies, with your artwork. People want to connect to you as a person, because your art isn't created in a vacuum. It's a huge part of who you are, right? So I know a friend of mine, she's very detail oriented. And then every time she looks at my work, she's like, oh, I wish I could loosen up, but it's not who she is. She needs to just enjoy. I always give her heck for it because her work is stunning, but just enjoy what you do and how you do it. And that's the thing at the end. Even though you are writing about yourself in third person, write it in your own voice. And then have somebody read it. Like I get my husband he's a business guy / hockey player, so total opposite ends of the spectrum. My oldest daughter is a teacher, but she's getting her master's in neuroscience and early childhood brain development, but it's about incorporating arts into all classes. And then my youngest, has her history. So she's like, both of them are great researchers, but she also designs and sews vintage clothing. She took a year of fashion design as well, and costume design. But it's good to have different eyes, whether it's a family member or a friend, someone you trust that reads it. And because they can, like, especially my husband, because he's in such an opposite, such an opposite way of thinking of things. He'll say, well, what does this mean? What do you do here? Because he's not like in my studio. He doesn't know what I'm doing all day, all the time. He's not an artist. He's learned, over the 35 years we've been married, how to appreciate different things and recognize different things. But he'll, like, even with my work, I get him sometimes to look and he'll say, I don't know what's wrong, but something feels funny here, right? So he might not be able to articulate, but he can point things out. And I recently took a grant writing and I took a press writing course, but it was terrible. But the grant writing course specifically talked about utilize ChatGPT, write something up, pop it, if you're comfortable with it, pop it in there, have it rewrite it. Just say rewrite, and then colon, and then type, copy and paste in whatever you've written about yourself, and it'll rewrite things, and you could, kind of meld those things together. I haven't done that. I just get my husband to look, and then he'll clarify things for me. But if you're struggling with certain things, because sometimes I know for me, I was recently interviewed by CBC Radio, which is so weird. I was so nervous, more nervous than, and I was also recently interviewed by Global TV, more nervous than the TV. And I think it's because I didn't see that person. We were on the phone, right? So I need facial expressions, and I lost my words and stuff, and especially as a visual person, it's my paintings and stuff that are really important, but it is also what I write about the paintings that is really important. So add your photo, write in your third voice. Oh yeah, third person. Begin with your first full name, and then after, anytime you mention yourself, say she or whatever pronoun you use, and then use your last name. Funk did this and Funk did that, because it's just like a newspaper article. You don't repeat, you don't use your first name, and you don't repeat your full name. You just start with your full name in the introduction somewhere, wherever it lands. Like mine is right at the first two words in my bio. And remember, these things are fluid. They will change as you're, it'll sound better, or you'll change. Like I have to change about using which medium I'm using now. So, but because I've just been experimenting for the last year, it'll change as I get more comfortable with my medium too. And that's what this artist residency is about, me playing more with the watercolors and figuring out where I want to go with them. Okay, then you need, so your bio is like a one-page thing. So it's probably about 250 words and ish. When I, like in my writing classes, my English classes, I have learned like 250 words takes about 15 minutes to write if you just sit and write. So one of the things that I was taught years ago was free fall writing. So W.O. Mitchell is a well-known Canadian author, and that's what he believed in. You sit down and just write, and it's even better to handwrite than to type. Although my daughters would disagree with me, but there's this, maybe, I don't know, as an artist thing, I took some psychology courses. There is a link between your brain and your hand, this physical act of writing. Sit down, write, and don't correct, don't edit or anything. Just, like blurt it out on the page and then go back in and reread it. Sometimes you need to do it, walk away from it, go back into it another day. Sometimes you can do it right away. I know for myself, my brain gets overwhelmed, so I'll go back into it later. There's also the mini bio, which can be, whether you're published in a magazine or something, they often will ask for a mini bio, which could be anywhere from 50 to 100 words. So you need to pick out the things that are the most important, that you think are the most important about you. So for this one, I wrote, raised in northern Manitoba, studied art and design at Red Deer College, painting professionally since 1999. Juried member. Oh yeah, so I've been painting a lot longer than that, but 99 was the first solo show I had. Juried member of FCA, ASA, and Layton. Inspired by people, urban and natural environments. She layers symbols, imagery, and vibrant color. See, I did really good on that. I didn't even talk about my medium on that. So maybe I'll have to incorporate some of that into that last sentence of my other bio. Then your statement. Again, pictures, really important. Your artist statement. So there are two types of artist statement. Your general one, written in first person, I, me, my, one page again, about the same words. It's really an overview of you and this one's an overview. So this is almost like your bio, but written in first person, like who I am. You can write it however you want. May include your background, your inspiration, your tools, your materials. This is often required or requested when you're submitting to juried or group shows. And again, here I talked about the free fall writing about W.O. Mitchell. So again, just do that free fall writing. The second statement is a specific one, because I write a new statement for each body of work that I create. So this picture is of the Nasty Women. And then this statement talks about where the idea for the Nasty Women came from. It came from my eldest daughter sent me a podcast. I don't really listen to podcasts because I tend to zone out, but it was this young woman. She wrote this poem called Nasty Women, which Ashley Judd read out loud in Washington at the first women's, what was it? Oh, Women's March, that inaugural one. And she suggested in there that we cannot be apathetic in difficult times. And I'm also of Mennonite descent. So it's like, you don't speak up, you don't, make a spectacle or anything. But then I realized it's important to do something sometimes, especially as the mother of 2 adult daughters. So that's where the inspiration came from. And I reached out to that poet, and she loved the idea because it's her work that inspired my work. I didn't want to, I was the arts and culture coordinator at our public library for almost 10 years. So you always have to worry about copyright laws and things like that. So even the photos that I paint, I always get consent before I do it. And so again, tips: sit down, write freehand, sometimes just writing some notes, jot down notes while you're working, have family members and friends and read your statement for understanding, clarity, and errors. Because when you're so close to something, you don't always notice it, whether you're painting or writing or whatever. And I always, you'll notice at the bottom of the page, I always put my website address at the bottom. Because if the gallery shares it, then people that come to see the show will see my website address. And then these are simple pleasures on the left. That was the first statement I ever wrote. And I had a different picture there, but then while I was, that was a body of work I created. That was the interiors. And it was created because I have 2 children that are 5.5 years apart. They were both born lactose intolerant. I had to nurse them both for almost 3 years. So I felt a little like a cow, but my house, the things around me were the things I saw all the time. So I always kept a little sketchbook so I could sketch while I was nursing them. And so I created this body of work. They were, these ones I think were all 3 feet and up, of just a big chair, or a big sofa, and books, because I always had books lying around too. So that was my first body of work that was exhibited publicly. And what was interesting about that, while I was creating it, somebody shared with a local magazine that I was, doing this work, and she sent a photographer to come take pictures of me. So it was so nice. Often if photographers take pictures of you, once the publication has decided which pictures they're paying the photographer for, you can pay for any other images, which is such a nice thing to know. You can even contact newspapers, and sometimes you can use them anyway, as long as you credit the newspaper or whatever for taking the picture, just because you're in it. But you have to always credit, the photographer and the publication. But the best thing is to be able to contact them and get pictures, purchase a picture from them. And then this sacred vessel was about my canoes. This was a number of years later, because I think I painted, chairs. Oh my gosh, furniture, 500 paintings. I was so sick of the furniture after, but they became very popular. Stephen Savados and Chris Heineman were interested in them in Toronto, and one of them ended up on HGTV. And what's cool is you never know where your stuff's going to end up, and you just got to get out there and share it. Then when I started painting my canoe, so my daughter was 12 when she took that picture of me. I had just taken, for the first paintings that I did in this series to the living room, just to see them in different light, because we have south-facing windows. And so I moved my stuff around the house and outside to see what it looks like in different light all the time, and to take photos and stuff. But she took that picture and I just loved it. And that was, my homage to my childhood. And things to consider, why do you create your work? Why did you choose this subject or medium or whatever, or substrate or size? What does it represent to you or about you? Is there a message you want to share with other people? What is your inspiration? What tools, materials did you use to create it? What techniques do you prefer? Because I also, for years, have used an airbrush, or first it was spray paint cans because I was inspired by graffiti and street art as well. But then I switched to an airbrush because of environmental concerns. What techniques do you prefer? Is there a reason you selected these materials for this body of work? And what does this body of work or creating this body of work mean to you, or even creating in general? And make it memorable. So it's all about telling a story. And that's the thing that's been so nice, as statements have moved away from like all that academic language. I found more and more like media and stuff want to share this because they want to share these stories. They're fantastic stories. So make it personal, write in your own voice, write as if you're talking to somebody. And one of the things that I learned is sometimes when you're by yourself, read it out loud. How does it sound to you? Does it feel natural? If you're reading it, if you were asked at a show or something to read your statement, would you feel comfortable reading it? Be engaging. And that's a funny one. My brother is like a physics major, and he's a certified accountant. He's a controller. He owns his own business. He's really funny. He's witty. He's just fast with, retorts and stuff. I am a slow processor. So I'm not this funny person, and I had to be okay with that because my brother can walk into a room and, just chat with everybody. I'm not that person, and I had to learn to speak in my own voice, use the language that I'm comfortable with, because you should always sound like you, always, because people connect with you. And it'll feel false if you try to do things like someone else, whether even it's in the work that you do or how you write about it. Keep it short, remove anything that is extraneous or duplicates. Like you'll see yourself maybe saying she, or I, like just kind of mix it up so your sentences start a little differently and everything. About 250 words. And again, ask for feedback from family and friends. Then your CV. So typically for submission, they want only a 1 or 2 page CV. My online CV on my website has everything I've ever done related to the arts. Articles I've written, articles that I've been interviewed for, every single show, even if it was just a single piece, because you forget really, really fast what you've done. That's where I create a blog on my website. And I used to have a different website, but then it got hacked. And at first I was devastated, but then I realized, I have printed up, like every year I'll go through and reprint my CV because it changes a lot from year to year. So it's nice to be reminded of the things that I've accomplished. And, but anyway, so I have a blog on my website so that the first page of my website is always changing. And it's nice because I can look back and go, oh, shoot, I did that. I forgot I did that. Oh, yeah, I was involved in that. Oh, yeah, I was on that jury or whatever. So it's really good to remember, because I don't know, I'm sure most people are like me. Yes, you mean to add these things and then you forget, or you think it's not valid or it's not important enough. Write them down because it's important to remind yourself what you've done. I do have a short bio on the top of, on the top of my CV. Go back one more. So I have a short bio on the top of my CV because for me, that's important to have it all together, because that's kind of, it's all linked, right? If there's education included, because jurors look at that. Awards, professional experience, but your education can be workshops you've taken. It doesn't have to be, formal education in a college or university. Exhibitions. So my CV, like my personal one, is now really long. So I just pick out what I think are the best things to go on this shorter CV for jury things. So yeah, so I have 2 CVs. My short one that gets updated whenever I'm submitting, and my long one that's updated constantly. And it is like a resume, your CV. So you do include your address and contact information on your CV, but that's not the one you would share publicly. Don't ever put your personal information on the internet. Yeah, so because my CV is several pages long online, I continuously update this short one to only include my career highlights. So it's a maximum of 2 pages. And you'd be surprised. Some people think they haven't done a lot. You've probably done a lot more than you think you have. So sometimes it's really good back to go on calendars or whatever if you've been missing, if you haven't added everything. Yeah, and this is where you can look online at other people's CVs too, to get an idea for layouts. I do it very traditionally. I don't put the actual day and month on anything. I just put the year. But I know some galleries want day and month, and then I have to actually go look for it. But most of them don't care, as long as it's, 2 things they're looking for: that you are still involved, that you're regularly involved in the arts in some way, and that you've been committed to it. So seeing you doing stuff like, so having highlights that go back like 10 years or whatever is not a bad thing. It's actually really good. So they see that, okay, they're still working, they're still committed. It's like any job application. They want to see that you just don't give up. And it's short, that's okay too, because everybody starts somewhere. Even if you've, exhibited in a cafe or something, add it. I add everything. And then publication. So this is the sometimes what people find the most intimidating is trying to get your work in magazines or newspapers or whatever, even online publications now. But it's actually not hard. Like, there's no secret or anything. It's just about sharing your information. You just have to do it in the right way. So I think, and the nice thing is when you have all your other ducks in a row, you can pull from those. Like my husband is so smart. So we've gone to see, different comedians and cooks and whatever, like Anthony Bourdain is what he used as an example for me. Because in the beginning, I was just about killing myself trying to write an article for this and submitting something for that. And he said, look at what Anthony Bourdain does. He writes a blog post and then or something on his website. He expands on it, submits an article to a newspaper, expands on that, submits an article to a magazine. He created a cooking show out of the same article. Then he did a, world tour talking about those articles. So my husband said, you keep trying to reinvent the wheel, just take what you've got. And that's another reason I love having my blog. So I used to post Monday to Fridays. Now I just do 3 days a week. And I usually have them ready in advance. If I don't have pictures or something, I'll add those later. I just have them as drafts. But I can grab stuff off my blog and go, oh yeah, I can expand on this and actually submit an article about it. So I submit lots of different things for actually, I think I do talk about that on another page, but so this is Galleries West. It was really nice because I hadn't been in Galleries West since my first show in like 1999, like the first show, the solo show in Calgary. But so I submitted the Nasty Women. I thought, I love Galleries West magazine. And I like Portia Priegert, I like how she writes and everything. So I thought, well, I'm going to submit it, the Nasty Women article. And then she contacted me. We ended up talking for 2 hours on the phone. It was so comfortable. And I think that's another thing. We forget that people want to help us succeed and they're excited for what we're doing too. And they want to share it too. So writing these articles, important part of your career. Not only do you become more proficient and comfortable with speaking about the work you create, there are also opportunities to present your work to an audience that may not have had that opportunity otherwise. There have been many people. So because of this Galleries West article, I have had a patron on Vancouver Island has purchased so much of my work. Like every few months, she contacts me either for a commission or to buy something she saw on my social media or something. So it's so funny, these connections. Somebody from Toronto purchased 4 of my paintings, after this article. So it's really interesting. So you become more proficient and comfortable with speaking and then presenting. And it's like finding possibilities to exhibit your work. You do need to do a little research. Look at bookstores, look at magazines, look on websites. What do the articles look like? What kind of stuff are they sharing? It's just like if you're wanting your work in a gallery or market or something, you got to look to see what are they looking for to see if you fit into that. So I've had my stuff published. Actually, I was on HGTV on a craft / interior decor show years ago. And that's when, you know, also when Steven Savados and Chris Heineman, you know, the designer guys got in touch. They had said that at that point, if your work is ever in Toronto, let us know because we'd love to have you on the show. But I didn't pursue that because, you know, it's hard to, you know, have your work across the country and shipping and stuff. I wasn't interested, but it was really cool anyway. But that's why I always think start locally, magazines, newspaper, video, radio, sometimes even connecting with other artists and, you know, kind of cross promoting, interview each other, you know, and stuff like that. And look at magazines. If you like certain magazines, are they the ones that could you somehow fit what you're doing into there? Like, say you paint dogs and you love these pet magazines. Could you submit something about your work to them? Because there is crossover lots of time, just trying to find those fits. It's just like with your artwork, finding the right fit for your work. And so this is where writing a press release is so important. But again, it's similar to writing your bio and statement. It's only one page, but the layout is different. So at the top, you write in uppercase, centered on your Word document for immediate release. Then you write in third person. Again, full name followed by pronouns and or last name. At the end of your article, so your first paragraph should be like a, gosh, I have some here, like it should kind of grab people, just like a newspaper article. Look at newspapers, look, you know, because it's all about grabbing someone's attention. What do you think would be the most important thing here? And what's neat is you can kind of look at an article and kind of mimic it and say, oh, okay, so this first paragraph is like this. Okay, I can make my first paragraph like that, sound like that, but with me and my stuff in it. At the end of that article, and then you have a closure. Oh, and then you can have, right before the closure, you can have a little, that's where you can add your mini bio, Veronica Funk, you know, this and this, your 50 or 100 word little bio. And then you type in centered with little dashes, either end or 30. I just do end because 30 seems weird to me, but it has never changed since the beginning of newspaper production. This is exactly the way they've done it right from the beginning. And then at the bottom should be your, it should say contact information, and then you should have your name, your phone number, your email, your website, and any social media links. If you don't have your immediate contact information, nobody will get in touch with you. Nobody will just go looking how to contact you. They really want your telephone number too, which is kind of sucky right now because there's so much spam calling and everything. But if you send an article out, answer even the spam calls because you'd be surprised. So was it last summer? I was on the cover of What Women Create magazine, which is, you know, an international publication. It's American. The funny thing was, there was, my article wasn't, I had written my article a few months prior. It wasn't supposed to end up, so this was the June issue. It wasn't supposed to end up or be published till like September or October, but they had us change in editors. So change in editor can go either way. It could be like, you could be canceled because they're changing direction. In this case, I ended up getting bumped up for my article. They expanded my article, put more pictures in, and asked if they could use a picture for the cover of the magazine. Like, how cool was that? The picture, though, that they liked wasn't quite right. So, and it had been taken by a professional photographer. This was a funny, weird thing during COVID. A photographer contacted me, or a company contacted me. They take photos for like that they sell to like Scotiabank or whatever for their advertising and stuff. And they were looking for an artist, and then they found out about me because their company's in Calgary. And so I got paid to have my photos taken. I got paid for the use of my studio to take the photos. And then my daughter got paid because they ended up taking her photos too, because she was sewing and stuff. So that was really a cool, funny thing. And I got to use the photos. Everything that they did, they sent me after, and I got really good quality photos. But one photo they had taken, the magazine didn't quite like it. They wanted me backed closer up to the wall. So we set this up, my daughter and I, she just took it quick, we sent it. Who would have thunk that it would have ended up on the cover of a magazine, you know? But because first I was thinking, I don't know if we can do this. And my daughter said, why not? Let's just do it. So yeah, and so you just never know what'll happen. But anyway, so when that happened, I sent it out to our local media that, you know, I was on this cover of this international magazine. It's available, you know, Chapters, Indigo, everywhere, grocery stores, Michael's. So that was really cool. And then, oh yeah, this is another press release I sent. So I shared that body of work from the cover of that magazine was finally finished, and I shared it at our local public library. We have 10,000, that's where I used to work as the arts and culture coordinator. So we have 10,000 linear feet of exhibit space, but they hadn't exhibited since before Calgary. They had no artist exhibit. So I ended up putting these 60 portraits of, I called it extraordinary women. It's just Canadian women who have inspired me and really kept me going through COVID, and especially when I couldn't go see my daughters all the time or anything. And so then this was the press release I had submitted because it was going to be showing locally. So I submitted it. We had 2 newspapers, magazine, and a radio station. And so I submitted it to everybody, and the one paper did not publish it. Oh yeah. So this was the one good thing I learned in that press release course I took. If they don't publish what you do, in a week or 2, rewrite your article from a different perspective. So then my second submission to the other paper was, I wrote it from the perspective of like, it's a woman painting women, Canadian women, and this show was exhibited in a library that the director is a woman, the staff are all women, and that are like one of our council, a couple of our councilwomen, our only councilwomen, went to go see the exhibit and shared it on their social media. So I made this whole thing about women, not about me, not about my show at the library, but how all these women have come together in support of one another. And then they did publish it, and they ended up making it a half-page thing. So that was a good thing I learned in that course, is resubmission. It doesn't mean that it's not a good thing. It doesn't mean that they've rejected it because it wasn't important or the work wasn't good or whatever. It might be just that they're full at the time of publication, or something major is happening. Like we had some incidents of our Pride path being tarred and feathered, which was horrific, you know. But, you know, and a lot of newspapers are getting word counts and everything cut, right? And page numbers cut. And so don't think it's a rejection of you and what you do and how you do it. Sometimes it's just a timing issue. Sometimes it's who's deciding what's going in today. So, yeah, so I had our radio station publish it both online and got an interview for that. The other newspaper published it. The Echo didn't. Oh yeah, and when I resubmitted it, I had taken new pictures with the work actually up in the library, and they published one of those pictures. So I'm also very lucky because I've worked so closely as the arts and culture coordinator. I was, you know, I started Creative Airdrie in town and the Art Society in town. I've been on those boards through the years and everything. I have a relationship with these media. I know who to contact. If one person doesn't, you know, pick it up, I can, contact the publisher or the editor and let them know about it, just in case it was missed, like maybe it went into their junk email or something. So don't think it's a personal thing. There's all sorts of stuff that can happen, and don't be afraid to resubmit. I used to feel like, oh, I don't want to bother them or whatever, but it's not a bother. They're always looking for stuff to publish. And sometimes, something gets canceled or changed. So suddenly you get something better and bigger. Yeah, so I actually ended up resubmitting that article 3 separate times. And because the show ended up being, they were going to do it for 2 months, it ended up being up for like 6 months because they didn't have any other artists or anything. They don't have an arts and culture coordinator, because of budget cuts from this government and everything. So they didn't have somebody to take care at the library of a lot of things. So yeah, so that body of work got to be shown for 6 months, which is fantastic. And people came in from Calgary to see it. And yeah, it was really wonderful to be able to share this. And so this body of work, I just posted a quote that inspired me, that each of these women have shared, things that they've been published for in the past. Yeah, so don't give up. That's the biggest lesson I think I've learned. And then television and radio. So this is my current exhibit up at Sparrow Art Space. You submit the exact same press release, no matter what the medium is: television, internet, radio, magazines, whatever. The same thing goes for every one of them. Can I show you a little bit about the Global News interview? Do you mind if I share that? Okay. So what's nice about this is I got to invite the women, like I said, whoever wants to be at the interview. Oh, can you hear me? Okay. Whoever wants to come of the women that were painted, please do. And they interviewed like 4 of them were able to come, and then afterwards several said, I wish we would have come, but so some of them are artists too, so they got some press themselves, so they're in, that can add to their CV. Oh, you know what, it's going too slow, my Wi-Fi is not working anyway. So it was just really nice that these other women, so it was nice that we collaborated in this way, first that they shared this information with me. And then let's see. Oh no, they don't have the quotes in here. But anyway, so it was really nice that people were able to share their stories to the artists that were part of my, it wasn't just artists, it was, several different people. But I'm going to just read this. Because a recent body of work titled Woman's Work is being exhibited as part of my current artist residency at Sparrow Art Space in Calgary, I submitted press releases to my community media and also to anything connected to the city of Calgary. Though only the local newspaper in Airdrie got in touch, because the other ones, they said, because the show isn't in Airdrie, we're not going to publish this, which is kind of short-sighted, I think, because I think it's nice to hold up people in the community that are doing some interesting things elsewhere. But I did, one of the newspapers got in touch, which was wonderful. But then in Calgary, Global and CBC, Global News and CBC Radio got in touch. And then the women got to come and talk to them as well. And then these women, like, it's been such a supportive community because I've included the women that were part of the project. But I think collaboration is so important because you all help each other out, sharing what each other does. My only problem is Instagram keeps thinking I'm a business because I'm sharing what other women do. And because I used to wonder why I'd be suddenly lose a bunch of followers, not because people thought I was like right now they think I'm Sparrow Art Space and they keep sending me warnings that I'm marketing. It's like, no, I'm doing an artist residency and I'm exhibiting this work and these people want to come see it, right? But that's a whole nother story, Instagram. They don't actually shut down the actual spammers and stuff, but just people who are just doing their work. And I don't want a business account. I just like having a creator account. So anyway, so that's just a side topic. But yeah, same press release to anyone. to magazines, whatever. So this was from that article in the What Women Create magazine. So yeah, like I said, when publishers have space, a short deadline, sometimes they will publish things as is. So it's really good to check your grammar and punctuation and all that before you submit it. My daughter, she's the teacher, she's also has an English degree, and she says Grammarly is a really good resource. If you want to invest in something, Grammarly is a good one to check all that kind of stuff. Oh, and if you have any links to anything, double check your links to make sure that they're going to the right thing, or they're not broken, or whatever, that things haven't changed. Sometimes I forget, and I change something on my website, forget that I send somebody a link to a certain page, but suddenly that page is moved, so then it won't work. And they don't often have time to go searching for things. So you got to make it easy for them. Make sure to have photos ready to submit. Well, and the funny thing is, in this article, that picture on the right with our cat Walter, that ended up in Where Women Create. So this was in What Women Create, but that picture ended up in Where Women Create for the next 6 months of publication. And I thought that was so cool. Who would have thunk? A picture of my cat in my studio. Publishers or any media's websites and magazines or whatever usually have submission and contact information guidelines. So check at the front of magazines, check at the back of magazines, even check who the writer is of different articles, if it's written by someone else, if it's not your words or the artist's words. Go to websites. Like there are, like here we have, oh my gosh, Barb, do you remember what I told you? Calgary, was it Calgary Today? And I told you, you guys have something like that out there where they're always looking for life of an artist, a day in the life of an artist.
I don't think there is one.
Well,
Oh,
there is.
I remember being envious.
There's something somewhere in Ontario, so just maybe not in your region, but they're always looking for artists to submit, you know, pictures and a step-by-step, like just of a one day in your life. It's great promotion, and it's also a great thing to add to your resume. So you don't get paid for it, but it's free promotion. I don't pay for any promotional material ever. Yeah, always have photos ready to submit, either with you working, with the work on its own, with you holding the work or behind you. So these couple of pictures were taken by that company that came to take promotional pictures or stuff to sell online. The submissions guideline. Oh, and keep a working MS Word document, but then always save whatever as a PDF when you submit it. They rarely want a Word document because it can open funny on their end. So they like a PDF. So when I do the PDF, I have my picture included and everything on a PDF. I have a separate MS document that's just the words. And always share your website address. Website. This is the other place. Promotion and getting your work out there is so important. So you have to have your bio, you have to have your CV, your statement, and have a portfolio, at least one portfolio. And if you'll notice along, this is a screenshot of mine. So my first page is my journal, my blog, and then I only have one line of tabs at the top. You can have drop downs from each of your tabs, but nobody likes to see too much. You know, we all get over inundated with information and words and everything. That's why visuals are so good, pictures. But I went years ago, I was contacted by the Alberta government because they had this really neat educational thing. And they invited certain small like entrepreneurs to be a part of it. And they invited me as an artist because they wanted to see if it could work for artists as well. So that's where I learned coding, which don't ask me to do it now, because nowadays you can just drop and drag. There's lots. I have a free web platform, Weebly, but I do pay for my URL, veronicafunk.com. I've always kept it, and that's only like $25 a month or something like that. I think I got it through Yahoo or something, but Yahoo's not around anymore. Can't remember what company took it over. But anyway, I pay for my domain name. I shouldn't say it's not free any longer, because during COVID, I did put on e-courses. So a business page on there, because the schools couldn't get me to come in. This way they could still have access to my little simple introductory painting courses for the students. And I've kept it because it's been really easy for me. It's another way to have this passive income, because I created a PDF and some videos once, and people can download it all the time, which is really great. Passive income, really important as an artist. Things like Society 6 and stuff like that are really good for that too. I just don't like promoting those things, so I don't do it. I tried it, it was great, but then you have to keep talking about it, and it's just not comfortable for me. But anyway, so your bio, statement, CV, and portfolio. I have my portfolio split into several, so here's my portfolio page. Under my portfolio, I have my CV. And I have my full CV on there, but on the top I have a mini bio. And then I split it up. So my portrait projects, and that's even split up to the separate projects. Each of my pages, like my 52 weeks, that's how I started the portrait projects. I did the heroes in painting it a week for 52 weeks. And then I continued the 52 weeks projects for 5 years and just did something different each year, like animals, wildflowers, like things I hadn't painted just to push myself. Because that never used to be the crux of my work. My work was these series, like the canoes and stuff, the big pieces. But now with adhesive capsulitis in my shoulders, I can only work small, but I am working on a plan to figure out how to work several small things. Like I do that as a project, but to incorporate in one piece, but we'll see what happens over the next year. So I do keep a separate link to each of my series. Under each of my series, I have the statement at the top, and then I have the pictures underneath. And if you click on the pictures, that'll take you to the blog post where I wrote about that picture. So it could be the story that somebody shared with me, it could be a quote, could be like with my wildflowers series I did. It just talks about medicinal properties and stuff, because I grew up north, so there was a lot of Cree and Métis teaching growing up. And I was once asked, if I was an artist, what would I want to do? And I've always wanted to be like an herbalist or something. But I did work in the medical field for a number of years and stuff too, but in dental actually. I have learned also with each of those series pages. So I do start a page for a series and that's where I start putting my statement. Can you all hear me? So I put my statement on that page, and that statement will change throughout the year as I'm creating that body of work. But I have a page started so that I have something just to go back to all the time. And then anytime there is an article or something, in the interview or something, I try to remember to put a link to it. If I have photos from exhibition openings or something, I will try to add those onto that page. So I make that my full portfolio of that body of work. When I first started, all I had was simple pleasures. So I had, instead of a portfolio page, I just had simple pleasures was one of my pages. So I had, my home page has always been a journal. Simple pleasures was my body of work that had my statement. I had a bio page and I had a CV page, because that's all I had when I started. I try to include exhibition photos. Oh, I also create a blurb book for each one of my series, and that's just blurb.com, I think, and where you can upload pictures and stuff. So I used to do printed up a portfolio and stuck it in my portfolio binder, but now I find I like to create a little book, and then you just have to order one and that's it. But I do share the link to it for anybody who's interested in ordering that book for themselves as well. Some artists, so this is the interesting thing about a portfolio page. Some artists only keep the most current work on their website. I do like to keep kind of a complete record of all my projects, but I do any projects that I did for years, like Simple Pleasures and Sacred Vessel. I only include the best pictures, because especially Simple Pleasures, there wasn't digital cameras available yet then when I was doing that. So some of my photos are horrible, you know? So I try not to include those unless I just really, really like the piece, then I do include it anyway. It's just like, oh, well, it's gonna be a bad picture. And then social media. I tried Twitter, tried Facebook, I've tried lots of things, but the only one I really like is Instagram. I don't like it as much as I used to. I liked it when it was just square pictures and it was just pictures. That was my favorite. But it is really important to have a social media platform because even if all you do is post a picture a week or a month or whatever, you don't even have to write anything on it or whatever, anything. But it's just media will often go looking for you on social media because they see a different part of you or a different side of you. Because on my social media, I'll post more things like just work in progress or things like that on there, and like just take a picture or whatever. And always share all your links to your platforms, website, social media, email. Oh, that was the other thing. My contact page does not have my email address on it because I don't want a bunch of spam. I get enough spam just having a contact page, but it's set up so that that email goes directly to my email address. And that's easy. On Weebly, it's easy. I'm sure on most platforms, Wix, there's so many platforms. You can start free and you can do that kind of stuff. So it sends you an email, or that you can go into there and check if there's anybody that's been sending you emails or anything. Because sometimes, like even Global News CBC contacted me through my contact page on my website, which I thought was interesting when they had my phone number and that. But you know, spam calls get filtered. Sometimes your phone company just filters things so they can't even get through. So they contacted me that way. A newsletter also is a really valuable resource. I used to do them once every quarter. I now do them monthly, and it's slowly been building. I don't promote it a lot, but it's a really neat thing. That's another place, like when I have a call for any bodies of work I'm going to create, I do put them through my social media and through my newsletter and through my website. So I'll have it a little bit everywhere, and it's amazing how many different places that people, like some people do not do social media, period, but they will do my newsletter, so it's a really nice way. You might get a totally different audience on each of your platforms. And I know Facebook was really great because my community is a Facebook community, but I just didn't like the negativity I saw on it. So I just, for my mental health, I just needed to get rid of it. Who knows, maybe someday I'll have it again, but I don't know. But I use MailChimp, but there are lots of different platforms, and some of the online websites even have their own newsletter. Oh yeah, I always say, remember, you don't need scores of suitors, you just need one if he's the right one. That's from Little Women. Because I have found in the past, posts or whatever that have gotten the most attention is sometimes the least likely piece of work that I ever sell. And some posts that maybe 30 people saw it, and I sell that work immediately. So it doesn't, numbers don't matter. It's just the right person seeing the right thing at the right time. So don't ever worry about algorithms because they change them all the time. Don't get stuck in that. Like, you should do your work should come first, and all this other stuff should just add to what you're doing. Only do what you enjoy. If you love doing all of it, do it. Some people are so good. I've actually, last month, I decided to try, because I don't like doing the reels on Instagram, but I thought I'm going to just try, because I did 100 little tiny portraits of women artists. Yeah, I got 600 new followers in 30 days doing reels. But now they've kind of been shutting me down because they're treating me like I own Sparrow and it's my business. It's not. I'm just a resident artist there. And every week I get a notification and I have to let them know, no, Sparrow is owned by Sandra Neal. I'm the artist in residence there. So it's just silly. So I'm just telling you this, just don't stress about any of that stuff. Just do what you're comfortable with. And you're not comfortable with social media, just have a website, that is the most important thing that you need. Now we come to presenting your work. The same thing as figuring out what you're going to create. You got to figure out how you want to present it. And I used to have galleries kind of across the country. And then when I started doing more of the portrait projects, it's not really what galleries are really looking for. They like when I do the canoes and the chairs and flowers and stuff like that, because it's easier for them to sell. So I had to figure out, how am I going to present these portraits? So far, I've had incredible opportunities. So like the Leighton Center pays a $2,800 artist fee for exhibiting your work, plus they pay for a solo show, plus they promote the heck out of it, because they have all sorts of government funding, plus Barbara Leighton herself donated money. It was a beautiful old building. Plus they only take, I think, 20% of all the sales. So there are so many different ways. It takes work, yes. And same as right now, I am sharing my work at my residency. So she takes 20% of sales, but man, I'm in a beautiful space. People can come, I can teach workshops there. Like I can do presentations there. It's just been a really great environment for me. And, oh, and the city of Calgary has these little libraries that they started in Northeast Calgary. I'm going to have 3 little paintings like this size exhibited there for, I don't know if it's a month or 2 months, but they're going to pay me almost $1,000 just to show 3 paintings. So there are a lot of other ways to make an income as an artist. It doesn't need to just be painting sales. That's why passive sales are good to, some people like selling prints. I don't like having inventory, so I don't like doing that. Plus you have to shell out the money in advance, but those print on demand things are really nice. So what kind of space do you want to share your work? I personally love historical and vintage facilities. I think they're beautiful. Sparrow has the original 1910 tin ceilings and the original oak floors, and it was owned by the same family since 1910 until just like in the last year, which I think is so cool. Same as the Leighton Center. This is women run, like my work just fits in these kind of spaces. So what kind of space, how you want it to look? Do you want to be in group or solo exhibits? I like both because I love the collaborative aspect of group exhibits. I love sometimes just having one piece in a show. It's just easy, plus another thing for my resume, and suddenly you get different groups of people that see your work. Do you prefer to hang it yourself? Do you want someone else to display it? I've had it both ways. It's fun for me in different ways because I love seeing how somebody else presents my work. What time of year? Do you want opening or closing receptions? Are there days of the week or times of the day? Calgary used to do first Thursdays, which was amazing. So every gallery in Calgary used to be open the first Thursday of every month. So you could just go gallery hopping on the first Thursdays. There was always wine and cheese at every one of the events. It was fantastic. And where? Pop-ups in shops, arts or craft markets, public or private spaces, or a combination of all of it. There's not only one way to do everything. Because I've had my work, the Canadian Movement for Literacy, they made cards and sold of my chairs, sold them in bookstores across the country one year. And so I got paid for the images. And then I got some residual income, but most of it went to raise funds for literacy in Canada. But that was the coolest thing. I got so many people contacting me for paintings of interiors because my work was across the country in just cards, So never discount something. If you love something, like I love literature, so having my work in bookstores. In fact, there's a bookstore in Calgary. She's a U of C, a University of Calgary professor who teaches English. And she had purchased one of my chairs, and she said every day she walked by, she thought, I've always wanted to open a bookstore. She did end up opening a bookstore, and it's in Calgary. It's very successful. It's been there about 10 years. And she has since commissioned 2 more interior paintings for the store and 1 for her house. So you just never know. And it was so cool that my painting inspired a bookstore, and I only found out about it through an article in a Calgary magazine. Somebody said, oh, you were in a magazine in Calgary. It's like, I wasn't contacted. No, she just talked about me and my work, and they had gotten some information from my website. And then you also have to find your audience. So same with me, every time I change this body of work that I'm creating, I need to find the place, the right place and the right people to see it. So, but when you do create stuff that resonates with you, it will definitely resonate with someone else. Never ever think that your work isn't as good as someone else. And if you ever feel that way, stop following someone on social media if you're feeling, uncomfortable, or just mute them for a while. Like sometimes I unfollow people, not because I don't like their work, sometimes because I like it too much and I feel like it's influencing me maybe negatively. And it's not a bad thing. We're human, it happens, are there places or groups that you'd like to connect with? Because doing group shows is sometimes so much easier and so much fun. So my residency right now is with somebody I met through Mastrius, actually, when I first started with Mastrius. And it's so wonderful. And there've been so many women from Mastrius coming to our exhibit. And in fact, yesterday, a whole group of us got together. It's been just such a rewarding experience. And then they bring their friends to our shows and to our workshops and stuff. So it's really neat. And, you can contact, if you like a cafe or a restaurant, you can ask to speak to the manager. If they have a business card, take it, send an email, say, I think this would be a really neat partnership. You wouldn't believe, I have sold lots of stuff because it was hanging in a cafe. I think the reason is because when somebody sees it in a place like that, they can envision it in their home, by a table and chairs or whatever. It's an inviting place to be in. It's not intimidating. Some people are really intimidated about going into galleries. So I've had work in healthcare, like facilities like in Edmonton, the Royal Alexandra Hospital. I've had them in restaurants and cafes. I just don't discount any of it. I've had sales through all of those opportunities. Create an online shop. And sometimes, and remember too, like I remember when our library opened this bigger facility, it was years ago, they had all my interiors there. And I didn't really hear anything about it while the work was up for the 2 months, but over the next year, I ended up selling every painting that was there. And like I said, it was a big space. So 10,000 linear feet. And the paintings, I think, were mostly around 3 or 4 feet that I hung over the stacks of shelving. But within the next year, I sold every one of those paintings to gallery or library directors, to patrons, so they ended up all over Alberta because, it was an opening of the new library and people saw it from a lot of different places, ended up in magazines in Edmonton and everything. So very cool. Oh yeah, and when the Edmonton Public did their renovations, they contacted me and they had a committee come down and select 6 paintings for their new space. And then the director ended up coming out and she bought 2 paintings for her house. And it's just weird. This all took, a couple of years, right? It's not an overnight thing. So don't think somebody's not thinking about your work just because they haven't been in touch. I love my work accessible. It takes time to, sometimes save enough money to buy a piece of artwork too. So, oh yeah, online shops. I know some people are really, really successful with selling their work online. Some people, again, prints or cards or things like that. But beware of scams because there are lots of places like, oh, we love your work, we'd like to buy it. Look for those funny spelling things, or if they're asking, is this your work? That's a scam. Like, obviously it's my work, it's on my website, but whatever. Yeah, and I've had my work replicated in Chinese factories and stuff, but I just learned to take that as a compliment that they thought it was worthy. Exhibitions. Oh yeah, I have shared my work in golf clubs. In fact, I've just been asked, I'm going to be paid to paint live at a golf club this fall. So there's so many different opportunities to share and promote and sell your work. But I don't even talk about sales in person or on my website or anything. People will contact me. Keep in mind, galleries often will charge anywhere between 40 and 60% or more. I used to have my work in the mountains in Canmore and that, but their commissions got so high because they moved into a newer, bigger building. It just wasn't worth it for me anymore, because my supplies were getting more expensive and everything. It's like, was cool and it was neat. They were selling work that it was ending up in different countries and everything, but It just was not worth it. So think outside the traditional box, you know, cafes, restaurants, healthcare, etc. There's great opportunities for partnerships. Lots of times they won't even charge you commission because they are just happy to have work on their walls that didn't cost them anything. Pop-up opportunities, lots of retail spaces do stuff like that now, like where for a day or a weekend, and cooperatives hosting exhibits together. I know artists who are doing, you know, garden shows in the summer, you know, either solo or in groups. And then galleries. The big thing about galleries, visit the space. Make sure that it feels like the right fit. You should feel welcome. Your work should complement what is already there. It shouldn't compete with it. There's an artist, Pam Weber, and I both did interiors, but she does them really tiny and I did them really big. So our work was always shown together because we had a similar color palette and everything. And but like hers was a little more illustrative, but it was fun together. So people have sometimes bought both our work because it worked together. But if you go into, say, a photography, a place that just shows photography, like if you're not a photographer, it's not going to be exhibited unless you do something cool, like say you paint old equipment, photography equipment or something. There might be something. So it's just about kind of thinking a little differently. So paying attention to the type of work represented, like original prints versus paintings, etc. And the gallery artist relationship can last for a long time. I've been with Blue Rock Gallery in Black Diamond, it's just outside of Calgary, for almost 10 years. I'd been at Inglewood Art until he retired and went back to Montreal for over 10 years. And just such great relationship. It is relationship. So you have to feel good both ways. You shouldn't feel intimidated or uncomfortable because I've, you know, worked with galleries in the past that I wasn't sure about, but, you know, I held them in high regard, thought they knew better. Well, they sometimes didn't pay me or took months and months and months or damaged things or lost work. So you have to be really careful. And sometimes you have to be okay with letting things go. Like I just learned sometimes bad things happen, but even better things happen. So should we go for questions now? Because I've got more about photography and stuff like that too, but you might have all that already.
Yep. Actually, Veronica, there is one. I was going to hold it on, but the question is about vanity galleries and what's your opinion on them?
I've had my work in them before. You have to be careful. So there was a great one in Calgary, but they were more about promoting their space and to rent, right, for events and stuff. I was okay with having my work there because they had large events, like minimum 250 people. So my work got seen by a lot of people. I would never pay for an exhibit, though I do pay, you know, to submit my work to like the Federation in Vancouver, but my work ends up in Germany and England and, you know, all over in Europe. So it's worth it for me for those submissions fees. But like I'm always contacted by Italy and I know friends who've done it. They've gone to Italy for these shows and it was cool and it was something cool to add to their resume, but they got nothing out of it. It cost them money for nothing. There's those galleries in New York, the galleries in England. Keep in mind, lots of times they will put your work on the wall, take a picture, send it to you, take it down and put up the next person's. So it's not actually being seen by anybody. So, and it's costing you money. You might even lose the piece, whatever. So some risks, it just depends on how you feel about it. So it's totally up to you, but I would say, for me, it's a big no. I won't do those things. I'm not paying anybody $1,200 or $3,000 to put my work in a magazine or anything. No. They usually either pay me or it's a free interview or whatever. So I'm a huge advocate of that because I've lost money in the past by thinking I needed to frame my work or, you know, what a certain gallery wanted, but then I stopped and realized it's because frames get damaged or somebody buys the painting, they want a different frame because that doesn't suit their house. So I just stopped with all that. No matter what some people told me I should do. Go ahead, Doug. Unmute.
Yeah, let's suppose you have $1,000 painting and you submit it to a gallery that charges 50% commission,
Mhm.
do you change the price to $1,500 or you just swallow the commission?
You know, that's the thing. They want you to charge whatever is charged for that painting. They don't want you to reduce it, because a lot of galleries, if they notice you're reducing your prices from what they charge, they'll stop working with you and your name will hit the circles really quickly. You got to set your price, whatever it would be in a gallery, if that's the direction you want to go, and keep it at that. That being said, though, I have had studio sales, but I let them know this is the older work and work with the gallery to talk about, you know, how we're going to do this. I don't sell stuff that's currently being shown in the galleries for a lower price.
Oh, okay. Okay, good. Thank you.
I was remembering when you did the residency in Banff. So you had a hotel that you were working with. Can you talk
Yeah.
about trying to, you know, coming up with your own residencies and creative ways to do that?
Well, that one was lucky. They actually every once in a while put out a little call for artists to come to a residency. So their rooms are usually like $1,200 a night. So they put me up and I just got to paint. And because it was just at the beginning as we were coming out of COVID a little bit more, and I did painting outside. Usually they ask artists to paint there. So they don't pay you for the residency, but I got a week stay at a really nice hotel in the mountains. It was fantastic. And I just got to paint all the time. But I do sometimes go, you know, just stay somewhere. And like, even I was in San Francisco, my daughter went to a Stanford conference on neuroscience. And she was painting, or while she was at the conference, I was painting. So I get to claim my whole trip, my hotel stay, my meals, because I painted and posted about it the whole time I was there. So even though, so I went just to be her partner, but I made it into a business thing for me too. I went and got some art supplies while I was there. Yeah, so it's really neat. You can go anywhere and create your own. You can do it even with a group of people, rent a space and do a little residency, and then you get to claim all your expenses, which is very nice.
That's great. And you talked about before about writing about your work all the time. So making a regular practice about writing as you create and how important that is to have stuff later.
You know, sometimes it's just a word or a phrase, even if something I hear on the radio, like Nasty Women was obviously in the news, you know, the Women's March was in the news. And now for the women's work, you know, learning about the She Session and realizing, wow, I'm not the only one that's affected by this. It's a lot of women in Canada affected by this. So then I would start writing them down. So even on my portfolio page, I will start, you know, trying to collect links to those articles or whatever, so I don't forget, because those articles will trigger those thoughts that I had when I was, because even with the She Session, I was driving and I heard it and it's like, okay, so I'm not the only one. I just thought just because I'm an artist, but no, it was happening everywhere, you know. And there's actually, then I Googled and stuff, there's actually data on Statistics Canada about it, about how women were disproportionately affected by job loss during the pandemic. So yeah, those ideas, I jot notes about colors I'm using, like a lot of my work, because of the backgrounds, I will incorporate something about that person or whatever, that thought into my patterns, because I'll cut my own stencils and stuff too. So in one of the women's work project, I actually took the pattern from her tattoo. She's of Ukrainian descent. So her half sleeve tattoo, I actually printed it and cut it out of a stencil to use on as the background of my painting. I haven't really talked about that a lot in my work, but I think I really need to do that more, maybe in the next body of work I do. Actually, my next idea is to do female Canadian artists, because, and I want to incorporate the style or type of work that they're known for into the work that I do about them. So that one I'll really be talking about what the background, why that's so important to the portrait that I'm doing. But you know what, that keeps coming. Like as I'm working my residency. Still, I have my little mole scheme. I write down quotes and stuff. So they're just these little paper, tiny little booklets. And I'll draw, doodle in whatever I feel. If something catches my eye or catches my attention, yeah, so I've got.
Uh-oh, we lost her. Well, we'll wait for her to sign back in. Think of your questions. I was going to ask her to talk about grants and grant writing. I know she did a course on grant writing. And there you are.
I think I lost internet for a second, but anyway, Hemingway used these little mole schemes all the time. He always had them in his pocket. It's like a little pocketbook. So I keep a pen or pencil and a mole scheme around me all the time.
I'm not sure if I'm spotlighting you and that's making it worse. It's drawing more on your internet or not. So if I find that you're coming out or having trouble, then I'll unspotlight
It's
you.
funny, I have 5G. I should be fine.
You
Okay.
should. I was going to say, what about the grant writing? And you did a course on grant writing, but grants are another way to finance your art.
Yes. So I took this course and I submitted 2 grants, and I found out I ended up in the top percentile. The problem with both of them was, so you have to, what's interesting with a grant, you have to write everything down first and then rewrite and get all your data together. So it can take you a good month to write a grant proposal, and every grant will ask for different things. So you have to do the research on each grant. So I submitted for 2. One, I ended up not getting it because I don't live in Calgary. The second one, I didn't clarify something on my budget. You need a very clear budget, both expenses, gifts in kind, and income. So that can be in-kind gifts, like this residency I'm doing. The space is worth $16,000, but my artist fee, she charges a $250 artist fee just because people cancel if they don't pay something often, right? So, but I didn't get the grant just because I live in Airdrie, not Calgary. It was just one of those, because everything's a point system. So obviously if you're a person of color or an Indigenous person, obviously, or trans, it's going to be, you're going to get more points, right? So it has nothing to do with you. So it was nice with the Calgary Arts Development Grant. She had a meeting with me just to tell me it was just that I just lost 1 point because I didn't live in Calgary. It's like, I gotta move, but otherwise I would have got the grant. But so
Where to find it?
you just Google, lots of Googling. Yeah, when I took the course, that's what he said. You just got to keep searching, keep Googling, figure out parameters. Do I fit into here? Do I fit into there? What am I going to do with this money? If it's for a residency, look for residency grants. If it's to apply to be part of a residency, look for that, because there are residencies like in Yukon, Newfoundland, like all over Canada, So, yeah. So I'm just going to keep trying. I just thought, wow, if I was in the top percentile for the first 2 I submitted, I'm feeling pretty positive. So, and that was the big thing she said, that don't take a rejection as a rejection of you and your work. It's just that there were so many applications for the first time ever, because, so many artists lost work over the last few years, and because of the issues that we're facing today. So.
And can you show us your blurb books? They're so cool, but I don't think we really understood exactly what they are.
I don't have one with me. Can you hang on a second? I'll run and grab one.
Okay. They're like exhibition catalogs, only sort of DIY. There's a what do you call it? A website that she goes to. So I hope we have more questions. I thought it was interesting that Veronica says she doesn't pay for any of her advertising or publications.
So
Period.
these are the books. They're just a little. So this, I'll show you. Okay, so this is Nasty Women. And then what I did when I painted, I just found a quote that I felt like reflected each of the women when I painted them to post them. And then this one's the grandmothers. And then this one, these ones are a little bigger, so they're a little more expensive. But I got to include the pictures that were sent to me, along with the portrait and the stories. Like this woman, very, very cool. During the Second World War, she smelted rivets on the harbor in Vancouver. Like, how cool is that? You know, like every one of these women and their stories, I just loved it. So they can be pretty pricey because they're just one-off, like print on demand. And then I have one that I did, but basically has all this kind of information, just because I knew it was hard when I started out to find, like I even talk about where I get my inspiration. This is me in college. I don't know if you can see it very well, but back in the day. But every one of my series, I always create a book with the pictures of so this is all the different Canadian women that I painted during the pandemic and the quotes that have inspired me through the years.
And how much do they cost?
So because it's print on demand and it's American, like one book can be like $40 or something, but you don't pay anything unless you order. You do have to order one book. So, but I do. They give you a discount for printing your own book that you publish. But they're fun. I think they're fun, and it's a great way for me to have my portfolio for each project on my bookcase. Something
And
because
do you use them for other purposes, or have they mostly just been for yourself?
no, every exhibit I have, I bring either a book or several, because sometimes people purchase them at the exhibits. So it's really nice. Like, so I have my woman's work one right now at the exhibit. I don't have the grandmother's one there because I actually printed the stories and the pictures put right beside the paintings there. That's just a nice way to keep your portfolio.
Yeah, I thought they were really neat. And $40, that's not bad. Sharon asks, what publishing company do you use?
Pardon me?
Sharon asks, what publishing company did you use?
Blurb. It's called Blurb. B-L-U-R-B. I just found it's very easy. It's a click and drag. You know, I like easy. I don't want to spend too much time, any more time than I have to on a computer. So yeah, I like it. And yeah, it is wonderful to have these at the exhibits. At the grandmother's exhibit, yeah, I have the stories. Yeah, at other exhibits, I've had several copies that I've brought with me so people can look through them again or buy them if they want to. Actually, the Leighton Center still sells the grandmother ones, which is nice, even though the show is no longer there. So, because the show was there not this past February, but the previous, yeah, last year. I think it was last year, yeah.
The Ontario audience won't know what the Leighton Center is, so maybe you can tell us what that is.
It's this beautiful, beautiful place in the foothills of the Rocky Mountains. AC Leighton and Barbara Leighton were a wealthy couple. And the cool thing is Barbara Leighton went back to Alberta University of the Arts in her 50s, same as me, which was kind of funny. They're a really neat little connection that I felt like I had with her. But this gorgeous house with this huge center room that faces the foothills and the Rockies. You can see the Rockies forever from there. And Barbara Leighton, when she passed away, she donated all the land. I don't know how many acres. Like there's trails through there, there's sculpture gardens, there are different buildings, outbuildings for children's and adult workshops and exhibit space and two gallery spaces, a shop, and all the historical stuff. Like they have AC's old pochade open and stuff there, and furniture he's built and different things, his drafting table, and she did a lot of fiber arts, weaving, printmaking on fabric and stuff like that, because she traveled to India and things like that. So she donated this all just for the arts, for for programming and for exhibiting in Alberta, which is just amazing. And I think she passed away, oh, when did I read? Was it in the 80s or something? She was an older woman, but she did so much more after her husband passed away. So it's really neat that she, like, there, that's only allowed to be an art center out there. And it's stunning. And they have all sorts of exhibits, like they'll have the clothesline show where they have people's artwork like 2D hanging from clotheslines all the way through the property, and they invite tons of artists and everything. It's an amazing space. It's funny. The director had invited me so many times to be part, and I'd never gone out there because I'm north of Calgary and it's southwest of Calgary down some back roads. And I'd never been there. And finally I went and met with them, and then they scheduled, my first solo show. And then they do members shows where they'll show more work of, like 3 members at a time throughout the year. And yeah, it's just, an incredible. So there's always something you can find out there to share what you're doing with other people, which I think is the coolest thing.
And what about passive income? Tell us more about passive income.
Yeah, so it's one of those things, like Society 6 is one of them. I can't think of the other ones. There's a lot of them online where you can upload pictures. You have to edit them to be the right, digital size and everything, but to print on cups and even to do prints of, shower curtains, leggings, pillows, whatever you choose for your images to be on. Once you set it up, your account, and set up that income, and you can pick anything. If you only want to do prints or cards, you can do just that. But you do have to edit each picture, so it does take time to set up. But boy, once you do it, you get a couple of dollars. And even for my books, I've set it up so I think I make like $2 a book whenever I sell them. So that wasn't my goal to make a lot of income from it. The thing is, it's just nice. I've set it up anyway. Might as well make a couple of dollars a book. And what's nice is, like, sometimes the galleries will order a whole box of books, and then I get that money from that box of books, which is very cool. But I did learn recently, authors in Canada, the average income of an author, and I'm sure artists are very similar, it's like $25,000. So authors typically make their income from grant funding. That's most of their living expenses is grant funding. Yeah, and you can get grants for cost of living. You can get grants for food or transportation. There's grants for everything. It does take a lot of time. But once you set up one, you can kind of copy and paste and, change it around and stuff a little bit. But I would recommend going to like a library or even online and order books on how to write an artist grant, because they'll tell you step by step. Oh shoot, I should have brought it too. One of my favorite books, and I tell everybody this, is called Taking the Leap by, I think it's Kay Lang, Caylang, and she talks about everything: how to write a statement, how to write a CV, and I think she even discusses grant writing in there as well. But there are lots of books about grant writing. The Canadian government has information about grant writing too. It's a big process, but I think it's totally worth it.
And what about, my partner just came in. And what about other forms of passive income, your courses that you have on your website and so on?
Yeah, so my books are one, my courses are one. If you do like Society 6, that's one. Anytime you create something once, but you can keep making an income off of it, that's a great way to make, have passive income. For some people, it's creating cards or prints. Once you've set it all up, the only thing with those ones is you have to do that investment in the beginning, whereas everything, I don't like to do that. So everything else I do, anytime I've done prints or anything, it's been with a company that they take care of everything. I just submit whatever size of JPEG that they want, and then they do the rest, and then I get an income off that. That's the other thing, like when I did the cards with the Canadian Movement for Literacy, but they contacted me. But I would even recommend Google artist passive income. I bet you there's tons of stuff out there. Because sometimes it's so nice once you set something up and you get income in every month and you haven't even thought about it, right?
I think Chat GPT is a good spot to ask those questions too.
Yes,
isn't it?
actually, yes.
Strangely enough, Chat GPT, you can say, how do I? And they
Yes.
will give you all the steps.
I know my youngest daughter, the history major, is totally against things like that, you know, those bots and stuff taking all your information. But my teacher daughter thinks it's a great resource. So, you know, whatever you're comfortable with.
All
I
depends.
tried it once just to see like what it would do. And it's like, well, this isn't bad. I had to go and change some stuff, but I thought this is actually done quite well for a robot that doesn't know what it's doing.
Yeah, they just collect things and make it into something, and it's much easier than Googling, actually.
Well, I just saw that even musicians who have written songs using ChatGPT will be eligible for awards, to be nominated for awards. So, well, I guess it's no different than using any other digital process, like for digital art and things like that too. Television, movies, right? So.
Well, thank you. Do we have any other questions? All right. Well, thank you so much, Veronica. That was really informative and as always, a good chat.
Yeah. And if anybody has any questions for me, you're welcome to email me. I'm Veronica Funk at outlook.com. If I can help you at all, just let me know.
Great. Thank you so much. And thanks everybody for coming out. And we'll see you again in a couple of weeks. And I can't take your spotlight off now, so you don't feel like it's quite so on
Thank you very
display.
much.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Was great. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Veronica. That was awesome.
Thanks, Barb. Nice to
And
see
it's
you
so
again.
good. Yes, nice to see you too. Have a great day out there in Calgary. Do you have anything to say too, Lisa?
Yes, actually, just hold on. Let me do this. Easier to talk without my headphones on. Can you send along your invoice to Barb and we'll pass it along?
Sure.
Yep, or info@ontariosocietyofartists.org, and then it'll go straight to Debbie, our administrator. That
Okay,
works.
perfect.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay,
Okay, bye.
thanks again. Bye, everybody. Bye, Veronica.
Have a great day.